Discover the incredible woman who transformed a millionaire's fate after a shocking car crash. Emily Dawson drove home through the vibrant tapestry of Willowbrook, her heart heavy with unresolved dreams. The civilian life of the small town felt increasingly stifling as the ache of unfulfilled ambitions mingled with the warmth of family, a weight she carried every day. She had spent another grueling shift at the local hospital, bandaging wounds and listening to the whispered fears of patients in pain. Yet, as she navigated the familiar roads, determination seeped into her thoughts. Could she carve her own path while supporting her aging parents and her community? Suddenly, she spotted headlights careening wildly across the road. Time slowed, and dread welled deep in her gut as the luxury sedan collided violently with an ancient oak. Without hesitation, she leapt from her car, focused solely on instinct and the need to help. She reached the crumpled wreckage, adrenaline surging, her heart racing at a speed that reflected the chaos around her. Memories of past patients flashed through her mind. What would they expect her to do? Inside, she found Jack Thompson, a name that conjured images of cold boardrooms and unyielding negotiations. As she pulled him from the wreckage, conflicting emotions spiraled within her. How had a man of such privilege become so isolated and desperate? The contrast between their worlds struck her like a physical blow. "Don't leave me," he murmured, panic echoing in his voice, a contrasting vulnerability softening the hardness of his reputation. Emily's resolve strengthened. There was something fragile beneath Jack's exterior that resonated with her own unfulfilled hopes. Her cozy home became a sanctuary as she nursed him back to health, each passing day drawing her deeper into his world, one of glitz and greed, but also of profound loneliness. She battled internal turmoil, torn between duty and the desire to steer her own destiny. Each moment spent together revealed layers of Jack she'd never anticipated, a man haunted by choices, yearning for connection, yet ensnared by fear. Yet her connections to Willowbrook rose up alongside. Would her community come to understand this complicated alliance? But the golden veneer of his life emerged as friction. Jack's acquaintances shot her glances filled with disdain. She was just a nurse, nothing more than a caretaker, they thought. Every hypothetical encounter, each judgment, further burdened her. Was she somehow tarnishing the noble work of her profession by entering this world of wealth? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension peaked as the pulse of Jack's impending scandal reverberated through their lives, threatening to undo everything they had built together. Emily felt the raw edges of uncertainty slicing into her confidence. What had begun as an act of compassion was evolving into something she could neither understand nor contain, launching her into a whirlwind of identity crises. What would she abandon to protect the fragile connection they forged? In that moment of pain, clarity hit her. She could no longer ignore her own aspirations. Emily stood on the precipice, bound by family responsibilities, yet drawn to a world undoubtedly fraught with conflict. As their unsaid emotions hung heavy in the air, the explosive confrontation loomed. Would she dive deeper into a life that blurred so many lines, or retreat to the safety of her familiar world? With tensions rising, a reckoning awaited, promising to redefine both their fates and force them to confront what truly mattered most. Emily stared into the distance, the hum of uncertainty swirling around her. Conflicting emotions ebbed and flowed like waves crashing against a rocky shore. As she glanced at Jack, still recovering from the accident, she felt a growing urgency to define her own narrative within this tempest of privilege and vulnerability. Emily. Jack's voice cut through the weight of silence, his eyes searching hers. You don't have to shoulder this burden alone. The sincerity in his tone ignited something in her. He was reaching out, not just to her, but to the part of herself she had buried beneath obligations and expectations. His vulnerability offered her a glimpse of freedom she thought she had relinquished. Yet accepting Jack's support felt like straying too far from her roots. They were situated on opposite ends of the social spectrum, yet it was a shared confrontation with loneliness that sculpted their bond. The fear of judgment lingered in the corners of her mind. It had taken root, swelling with every disdainful glance from Jack's socialite friends. Was she becoming someone who defined her worth by the company she kept? "Let's figure this out together," she finally said, her voice steadied by burgeoning resolve. This was not just about Jack anymore. It was about reclaiming her identity, illuminating the pathway towards her aspirations, which felt increasingly vivid with each interaction. For too long she had played the role of the caretaker. Perhaps now was the time to be the architect of her own life. With a deep breath, she began to outline her vision. A blend of nursing and advocacy, a chance to empower others while nurturing her professional growth. "I want to start a health and wellness initiative aimed at the underserved in our community," she said, her words tumbling out with urgency. "What if we collaborated on fundraising? Your network could provide the resources. My experience could offer the insight." Jack leaned forward, intrigued but skeptical. And what if it backfires? What if this spirals out of control? His doubts did not deter her. They sharpened her focus. The stakes were high. But what was the alternative? "Then I will know, Jack. I will know what it's like to launch something meaningful and take responsibility for it." A flicker of understanding crossed his features. "You're not just aiming to lift yourself up. You want to elevate others. You're brave." In that moment, Emily felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. Here she was, standing at the intersection of two worlds. Was it courage that had brought her here, or was it desperation? Perhaps it was both. She needed to channel the uncertainty into a goal rather than allowing it to paralyze her. The path forward was tricky, combining Jack's world of wealth and privilege with her desire to bridge the socio-economic divide would be no easy task. But she could no longer shrink in the shadows cast by their societal differences. As Jack facilitated their meeting with potential sponsors, Emily juggled her nursing responsibilities and the outreach campaign. Then came the day of the presentation, a moment that felt tightly wound with tension. She paced the hall backstage, rehearsing her speech with fervor. But seconds before the curtain lifted, doubt clawed at her gut. "What if they see me as an imposter?" she thought. What had she done to elevate her presence in this world, apart from the compassion she carried? As anxiety threatened to consume her, a realization struck. Her power lay within her experiences, sharpened by countless nights spent tending to others. She was already living proof of resilience. "Emily?" Jack's soothing voice broke her reverie. "You're ready. Trust your voice." In that moment she understood. The journey was not just about changing lives, but about rediscovering her own. The curtains parted and she stepped out, armed with purpose. But as she faced the audience of powerful elites, she knew one thing: the moment had arrived. Behind her stood an uncertain future, while ahead lay an opportunity to define her own worth. Would her message resonate, or would it only further entrench the chasm between her world and Jack's? The answer hovered just out of reach, tantalizingly close yet painfully distant. The spotlight cast a warm glow upon Emily, illuminating the doubts she had battled in the shadows. She caught her breath as the audience shifted before her, a sea of expectant faces etched with curiosity and skepticism alike. This was her moment. She quickly adjusted her posture, steadied her hands, and focused on the reality she could create through her words. Her mind raced back to the careful preparations, overtures made, data collected, the personal stories that formed the backbone of her message. Each story was a testament to struggles too often swept under the rug, lives discounted because of circumstances, while she stood ready to advocate for them. But could she articulate this passion without faltering? "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice breaking the silence like the first breeze of spring. "My name is Emily Parker." The name resonated with both familiarity and a freshness she hoped to convey. As she continued, the tremor in her voice transformed into a melody of resolve. She outlined her vision, a health and wellness initiative aimed at bridging gaps in underserved communities, fueled by access rather than privilege. As she spoke, she noticed Jack's supportive gaze. He was not merely a spectator, he was part of her narrative now. The thought inspired her. This was not just about her. It was about shared stories, collective struggles, and breaking down the barriers that separated people from their potential. But with every enthusiastic sentence she delivered, a thread of anxiety weaved into her resolve. What if they didn't understand? What if they dismissed her as another naive idealist? Questions gnawed at her, relentless and chilling. Then came the moment she had prepared for, an outline of her actionable plan detailing how they could elevate health initiatives with tangible outcomes. She laid out the partnership benefits, statistics from her research, and poignant anecdotes from patients who had fallen through the cracks. Each piece was a calculated risk, each data point a stand against complacency. But then, a voice rang out from the back of the room. "This sounds great, Emily, but what makes you think you have the experience to lead such a program?" The challenge echoed off the walls, peeling away layers of her bravado. It was a poke at her foundational fears, those nagging whispers of inadequacy that seemed louder in the spotlight. Reeling, her heartbeat quickened. The self-doubt threatened to swallow her whole, yet beneath the panic, another feeling flickered to life: determination. "What I may lack in credentials," she responded, locking eyes with the questioner, "I make up for in passion and lived experience. I have seen firsthand the importance of accessibility in healthcare. I have worked the long shifts, connected deeply with families, and I know their struggles. That's why I'm uniquely suited to lead this initiative. I understand the reality." The tension shifted in the room, words hanging heavy with weight. She felt a subtle shift. Perhaps they were starting to hear her. Her heart throbbed with nascent confidence, pumping audacity through her veins. Could this be what she needed to redefine her narrative completely? As she finished her presentation, applause erupted. The audible sound was music to her ears, but a buzzing anxiety remained. What would the final verdict be? Would they reach out to help, or would this potential fall flat, merging back into unrealized dreams? Despite the cheers, the looming silence of uncertainty followed her off the stage. Jack approached, his eyes sparkling with pride yet shadowed by his own doubts. "You handled that exceptionally well, but do you think they really got it?" The question sent ripples of unease through her. Had she communicated what truly mattered? The urgency to bridge their divide was still palpable. The proposal was only the beginning, yet the threat of failure lingered unbearably close. Suddenly, her mind raced to a new realization. Her personal battle for self-definition was far from over. Jack's skepticism echoed in her heart like a pulse, still binding them in this precarious partnership. Would she have the courage to become that bridge they so desperately needed? With that thought lingering in the back of her mind, she took a deep breath, realizing her journey was just unfolding, each step fraught with uncertainty, yet promising significance. What would her next steps look like, and who would step up to join her in confronting the challenges ahead? The future loomed, an open-ended question she was determined to answer. As Emily stared toward the gathering crowd, she felt her resolve harden. Change was within reach, but first, she would have to face her most daunting challenge yet: herself. Determined to overcome the lingering echoes of doubt from the presentation, Emily stepped out of the venue, the buzz of the crowd fading into something disorienting. Fresh air filled her lungs, invigorating yet fraught with new apprehension. What lay ahead felt like an unknown expanse that both excited and terrified her. Jack walked alongside her, his expression a mixture of admiration and contemplation. Despite the applause, she sensed his unease. "You know," he said after a brief silence, "sometimes people don't realize how much they need to listen. Your message was powerful." "Thank you," she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "But did it resonate? Did I really reach them?" Jack's brow furrowed. "You can't expect everyone to fall in line immediately. Change takes time. You're in uncharted waters, and that comes with risks." His words hung in the air like a challenge. As they walked toward their car, Emily couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that she'd merely skimmed the surface of what she could be. The reality of leading an initiative weighed on her like a heavy cloak. That night, as she lay in bed, the day's events replayed vividly in her mind. Each commendation blended with the doubts thrown her way. She reflected on the question that pierced through to her core. The voice from the audience, skeptical yet probing, lingered like an itch she couldn't scratch away. What makes you think you have the experience to lead such a program? Was it too late to confront that uncertainty? What was her next move? Days turned into a blur of restless thoughts as she skimmed through her notes. Each time she signed her name, Emily Parker, it felt like she was morphing into someone new, someone who carried not only her dreams but also the weight of others' hopes on her shoulders. Jack's encouragement shifted to practical advice. He suggested assembling a small advisory board of experienced individuals who could lend their insights and credibility to her initiative. The idea captivated her. She could reach out to people with tremendous knowledge and perhaps squeeze the self-doubt from her psyche, yet fear clawed at her. What if they saw through her facade? What if they found her unworthy? With a deep breath, she resolved to reach out to a few potential mentors. Early morning coffee turned into trembling hands over typed messages filled with tentative invitations. Each email sent was both liberating and paralyzing. But she needed their perspectives. She needed to find confidence in collaboration. One afternoon, after sending out her 7th email, she received a reply that sent her heart racing. Dr. Matthews, a respected figure in public health, expressed interest in meeting. A mix of excitement and fear gripped her. Who was she to think he'd consider her mission worthy of his time? Perhaps the skepticism within her wasn't unfounded. Sitting across from him in a quaint cafe, the truth hit her like a freight train. Discussions about initiatives like hers often centered around professionalism, education, and experience, not raw enthusiasm and lived realities. His penetrating questions probed deeper. What specifically are you hoping to achieve, Emily? What does success look like for you? Suddenly, the weight of her aspirations clashed with the stark reality of the expectations he laid bare. Each question felt like a spotlight, illuminating parts of herself she hadn't fully acknowledged. Her commitment, her personal story, the fundamental belief that capabilities often reside in unexpected domains. I want to bring healthcare to those who feel invisible, she replied, her voice steadier than she expected. But am I equipped to do this? Dr. Matthews leaned back thoughtfully. We often underestimate our own potential, especially when driven by genuine purpose. Tell me, what do you bring to the table that is unique? In that moment, Emily's mind raced, tagging every experience that had shaped her life and led her to this point. It was about her story, her understanding of the raw edges of struggle, and the willingness to connect hearts. The shift, unexpected and valuable, illuminated a path forward. The exchange with Dr. Matthews ignited a fierce resolve within her. As she left the cafe, she felt lighter, aware that collaboration could catalyze her transformation. It would require her to confront the judgment she'd been afraid of, to be vulnerable rather than perfect. But now another question loomed. Could she balance her vision with the guidance of those more seasoned, and in doing so, become a facilitator of change while preserving her authentic self? With a new sense of determination, she stepped onto the path that lay ahead, ready to carve her place into a daunting yet thrilling future. The next challenge awaited her, and deep within, she felt an unmistakable call. Would she embrace the chance to redefine herself within this new framework? Emily's mind buzzed with a blend of excitement and anxiety as she left the cafe, the echo of Dr. Matthews's questions propelling her forward. Each step felt more grounded, yet an underlying current of uncertainty lingered. Would collaboration compromise her vision or amplify its reach? A few days later, sitting across from her laptop, she felt an unfamiliar pressure to prepare for her upcoming advisory board meeting. She had scheduled it with Dr. Matthews and 2 others, a community organizer known for their innovative grassroots work, and a financial strategist with a reputation for bringing clarity to chaotic projects. Their experience glimmered like a beacon, but it clashed with Emily's fears of inadequacy. Her thoughts swirled around, replaying the doubts that still haunted her from the initial presentation. What if they challenged her vision? What if they questioned her authority to lead? Yet amidst the uncertainty, she sensed something else surfacing, a steely determination to claim her power. The morning of the meeting, she donned an outfit she felt confident in, a crisp blazer balanced with her favorite bright scarf. The mirror reflected a version of herself that seemed stronger, yet those nagging doubts still poked at her resolve. As she arrived at the meeting space, a small, bright conference room adorned with art that sparked conversation, Emily forced herself to breathe deeply, letting the air fill her lungs and calm her racing heart. Dr. Matthews, already present, offered a supportive nod. The community organizer, Sophia, had an infectious energy that immediately put Emily at ease. But Kevin, the strategist, was all business, his demeanor serious and focused. "Let's get started," Dr. Matthews prompted, and Emily felt as if her pulse synced with the rhythm of the room. As she began to outline her vision, she noticed the balance of voices around the table. Each member shared their expertise, and instead of feeling overshadowed, Emily found herself weaving their insights into her narrative. She spoke passionately about bridging healthcare gaps for underserved communities, emphasizing her commitment to ensuring the invisible were seen and heard. In that moment, she discovered her unique ability to connect disparate ideas and perspectives, each contribution only solidifying her central message. Left to her own thoughts, she had believed her vision lacked substance, but now it sparkled anew under the collective scrutiny. The questions that followed weren't attacks. They were invitations to delve deeper, to refine and expand her concept. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes alight with possibilities. "What if we could leverage social media to tell these stories of the people you want to help? Help them understand how they fit into this vision?" Emily's heart raced at the suggestion. Could storytelling become the bridge to action? As Kevin broke down potential funding avenues, she felt the weight of her vision shifting. It transformed from daunting to achievable. Moments of hesitance gave way to clarity. Ideas flowed, ignited by the varied experiences around her. And Emily found herself thinking not only as a leader, but as a collaborator, ready to embrace the complexity that leadership often entails. By the end of the meeting, Emily was infused with a confidence she hadn't expected. They committed to pursuing additional avenues to create resources and gather stories, solidifying a strategy that felt not just like hers, but theirs collectively. However, as the discussions wrapped up and everyone exchanged farewells, an unsettling thought crept into her mind. Would she truly hold on to her essence in this collaborative space? Particularly with Kevin's tendency to prioritize concrete results over emotional storytelling, would she be pushed to compromise her vision for the sake of practicality? Walking away from the building, her pulse still quickened, and for the first time, she felt it, an exhilarating dread. Confronting her authentic self amid diverse perspectives would soon demand profound courage. With the echo of vibrant ideas swirling in her head, Emily's resolve leaned more toward yes than no. She clenched her fists, feeling the spark of potential for what was to come. But now, she lay on the brink of a profound decision. Would she challenge the comfort of familiarity to enhance her personal and collective journey? Emily stepped forward into an uncharted expanse, the call to redefine not only the initiative, but herself resonating fiercely within her. The next phase of self-discovery awaited her, each choice leading her closer to clarity or deeper into the fray. As she prepared for final implementation, the stakes had never felt higher. A confrontation with her emerging self loomed, and she could scarcely imagine what lies ahead when the moment of truth arrived. Emily woke the next morning with a sense of urgency thrumming beneath her skin. The meeting's energy still echoed in her mind, and the ideas exchanged felt like fire igniting her potential. She had taken the first step into collaboration, a realm she was still unsure about, and now it was time to keep that momentum alive. Sipping her coffee, she stared at her laptop screen, the blinking cursor a constant reminder that she needed to articulate the next steps. There was a plan to formulate, how to meld her vision with the insights of her advisory board. Each contribution they'd made should be a thread woven into the fabric of her project. Yet the challenge lay in maintaining her narrative while allowing their perspectives to shape it. She opened a document, tentatively naming it Strategy Plan. The blank page mirrored her hesitations, but she began typing, words tumbling out as ideas collided in her mind. Emily recognized the need for balance. Her aim was to tap into the raw stories of those she wished to serve, but she sensed Kevin's voice lingering in the background, reminding her of the practicalities she couldn't ignore. How could she support these compelling narratives without sacrificing the rigor that guarantees sustainability? The first line she wrote reflected her intrinsic belief. Every person has a story that can illuminate the path to change. Suddenly those words felt like an anchor. They steered her away from deviating into purely pragmatic territory and reminded her that the pulse of her initiative must resound with empathy. She knew that stories inspired action. Yet the concept of quantifying impact still nagged at her. Pacing in her small apartment, she couldn't shake the doubt that flickered like a candle flame in her chest. Confrontation with Kevin was inevitable, and the thought of voice clashing left her feeling exposed. How would she pose her emotional-driven approach against his result-oriented framework? In an attempt to experiment with her uncomfortable equilibrium, Emily decided to reach out to Sophia. The community organizer had resonated with the heart of her vision, and the two of them could brainstorm ways to combine storytelling with strategic messaging. Maybe Sophia could help her shape her narrative to appeal to both emotional and analytical sensibilities. As she crafted a message to Sophia, Emily noticed her heart rate quicken with renewed hope. Connectivity with someone who shared her enthusiasm for the mission brought forward a spark of confidence she hadn't anticipated. Choosing to see this as a collaborative evolution rather than a surrender of her vision was crucial. Within the next hour, Emily had arranged a brainstorming session with Sophia for later in the week. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she contemplated Kevin's possible responses. What if he dismissed their ideas as impractical? But what he didn't know about the power of storytelling and emotional resonance ran deeper than numbers. Determined to prove the worth of her narrative-driven approach, Emily leafed through her notes from the meeting, a few vivid quotes from her own mind surfacing. The stories of others can forge connections that statistics simply cannot, she mused. Later that evening, as she settled into bed, Emily's thoughts started spiraling again. Would she manage to integrate these differing visions into a cohesive approach that honored her idea, while recognizing the strengths of her collaborators? As she navigated this landscape of leadership, her identity would unfurl or fragment. The path was laid out before her, littered with moments of potential conflict. A realization loomed. This would be a journey of not just professional growth but profound personal transformation as well. The moment she faced Kevin's skepticism would come sooner than she thought, and she needed to brace herself for that inevitable clash. With this internal conclusion, a question formed in her mind. Would she emerge altered, emerging stronger from the convergence of these conflicting perspectives, or would she risk losing a part of herself? She didn't have the answer yet, but the journey ahead promised to reveal more about who she truly was and what she could become. As she turned out the lights, the shadows danced on her walls like their own uncertainties, and she felt a new resolve growing within her. Tomorrow marked the beginning of a transformation that would challenge everything. The first step would be reaching out, to both connect and confront. Would it push her closer to her authentic self, or tear at the foundation she had carefully built? Time would tell, but she was ready to find out. Emily woke up early again, this newfound energy pulsing through her veins with urgency. The shadow of Kevin's feedback loomed as she prepared for her meeting with Sophia. Each moment felt saturated with potential. This was an opportunity not only to explore her vision of storytelling but to transform her underlying philosophy into something actionable and valuable. After a quick shower, she spent the morning reviewing her notes. Her mind skated over the elaborate explanations she needed to convey, mentally rehearsing how to weave her narrative-driven strategy into a cohesive presentation. It all hinges on connection, she thought, a notion that had grown into an anchor she could trust. Arriving at the cafe where she was to meet Sophia, the air crackled with promise. The chatter of other patrons faded into background noise as she focused on her breath, centering herself. This conversation would need to expand her thinking and strengthen her resolve. When Sophia arrived, Emily instantly recognized the spark that had drawn her to the community organizer in the first place. They exchanged pleasantries, the warm enthusiasm of shared purpose hanging between them. "Let's dive in," Emily urged, taking a sip of her coffee and shifting gears. "I really believe we can create a narrative that resonates emotionally while being pragmatic." She laid out her vision, articulating her desire to identify clear milestones that would also maintain deeply human stories. Sophia listened intently, nodding and taking notes. "What's crucial is to make the why resonate just as strongly as the how," she countered, her voice rich with conviction. "People respond to challenges, but they connect through emotion. If you can bridge both, you're golden." As the session unfolded, Emily felt a rush of clarity wash over her. The nuances of their discussion were enriching and layered. Ideas sprouted like flowers in spring, intertwining the emotional threads of empathy with the gritty details of implementation. Together they began to outline a strategy, a blend of storytelling and analytics that forced Emily to confront her fears head-on. "What if Kevin doesn't see the merit of this?" Emily admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I lose my confidence when he dismisses emotional narratives as fluff." Sophia met her gaze with empathy. "But what if you approach him with this prototype? Show him how measurable impact can spring from those stories. It's not about burying your vision under numbers. It's about using the numbers to uplift those stories." The conversation shifted gears. Suddenly, Emily wasn't just thinking of Kevin's skepticism as an obstacle, but as a challenge that could deepen her own understanding of her mission. Could she pivot her approach in a way that still honored her core values while addressing Kevin's concerns? With every idea they developed, Emily began to envision tangible ways to utilize metrics alongside narratives. She could see graphs peppered with personal anecdotes, data points illuminated through the lens of human experience. The prospect felt electrifying. After nearly 3 hours, they wrapped up brainstorming and scheduled a follow-up session. As Sophia stood to leave, she smiled. "Keep that fire alive, Emily. Trust yourself to meld those pieces together." Walking home, Emily felt as though she had been birthed anew, her vision clearer and more robust than ever. That night, she sat down with her laptop again, determined to distill their conversation into a format she could present to Kevin. But as she began to type, a new wave of anxiety crashed over her. The more she solidified her plan, the more significant the stakes felt. Confrontation with Kevin loomed ahead, draped in uncertainty. Could her narrative approach flourish within his framework of scrutiny? With her heart racing, she paused to reflect. What if he challenged her to define the true cost of emotional storytelling? There was a fine line between fulfilling her mission and drowning in someone else's expectations. She pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the vision she defended. In the days leading to her meeting with Kevin, Emily realized that the time had come to fuse their contrasting perspectives into a narrative of strength. She needed to articulate not only her approach but also the growth she had experienced through this process. As her thoughts unraveled, one question burned in her mind. Would she manage to convince Kevin of her vision, or would she falter under the weight of his skepticism? There lay ahead an impending clash, a crucial moment that could reshape her journey altogether. Would she harness the courage to stand firm or find herself retreating, undermining the transformation she had fought so hard to embrace? Emily's meeting with Kevin loomed closer, a silent tempest gathering in the back of her mind. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo the importance of her upcoming confrontation. With every passing day, she meticulously refined her presentation, pairing emotion-driven narratives with quantifiable data points. She hoped to forge a narrative that would resonate with both the heart and the mind, a challenge that had her teetering on the edge of anxiety. Late one night, while reviewing her slides, her reflection in the screen underlined a realization that strengthened her resolve. This was not just about convincing Kevin, it was about rallying her own belief in her vision. In the quiet solitude of her workspace, She committed to embracing vulnerability, confronting the parts of her narrative that left her feeling exposed and uncertain. She recalled Sophia's words, "Trust yourself," to meld those pieces together. Each time they echoed in her mind, they stitched together her fears and aspirations into a richer tapestry of purpose. Emily realized that her emotional ties to the stories she wanted to tell were not weaknesses but powerful motivators, a bridge to create understanding and connection. When the day of the meeting arrived, she dressed deliberately, choosing a deep blue blouse that made her feel calm yet confident. The color paired well with her steely resolve, each button representing her commitment to her new narrative. She arrived at the office with her heart racing, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and the muted chatter of colleagues swirling around her. But her focus remained singular. This was her time to articulate her vision fully. Stepping into the conference room, Emily found Kevin already seated, his stern expression a familiar reminder of the challenges he posed. She took a moment to breathe deeply, centering herself before diving into the discussion. The colors around her, the soft hues of the artwork, the bright natural light flooding the room, felt vibrant and alive, encouraging her to channel that energy into her presentation. "Thank you for meeting with me, Kevin. I've spent a lot of time considering how we can leverage storytelling to drive impact," she began, her voice steady despite the tempest swirling in her gut. As she launched into her presentation, she paused, scanning Kevin's face for any signs of engagement or skepticism. At first, his response was predictable. He leaned back, arms crossed over his chest. But she persisted, weaving her narratives with the numbers she had collated. Each story painted a vivid picture, illustrating not only the emotional weight behind the statistics, but also their profound implications for their mission. Emily was surprised at how natural her words felt once she embraced the full force of her convictions. As the presentation unfolded, she noticed Kevin's demeanor shifting subtly. His brow furrowed initially but then unfurrowed as she connected the dots between the human experience and hard data. Still, doubt lingered in his expression as she reached the climax of her proposal. "What does success look like for you?" he asked, a question that struck her like a lightning bolt. Emily's pulse quickened. This was her moment. Success means reshaping the narrative so that every data point tells a story of transformation. It's about showing how our decisions impact lives. That's the heart of what we do. The words flowed out in a rush, her conviction transforming uncertainty into raw power. Kevin nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing as he considered her proposition. "You understand that emotions can cloud judgment and affect decision-making," he replied, a challenge hidden within the guise of a question. "Absolutely, but emotions can also inspire action," Emily countered, her confidence hardening. She had prepared for his skepticism, and now she sensed the shift, the inevitable dance of challenge and acceptance. Yet, despite the feeling of progress, unease brewed beneath the surface. Was this exchange really about him understanding her, or was this an exercise in proving herself? As they wrapped up the meeting, 5 words played in her mind like a refrain. What if he still didn't understand? Walking out of the office, Emily realized this was not merely a conclusion but a beginning. Her confidence had grown, inching closer to alignment with her values. She knew that this moment wouldn't erase all her doubts, but she could feel the clarity of her narrative surging. What lay ahead was not just about winning over Kevin. It was about owning her power in this narrative journey. The next challenge awaited her, a pivotal moment where she would have to defend her insight and perhaps even redefine her measure of success in this male-dominated arena. Would she find the words to articulate the value of her vision, or would she wrestle with her own fears once more? The next day, the atmosphere in the office felt charged, an undercurrent of expectation humming through the hallways. Emily sat at her desk, staring at her computer with a blank screen before her, grappling with the aftermath of her meeting. Instead of a soothing sense of accomplishment, doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. Kevin's critical question replayed in her mind. What if he still didn't understand? A storm brewed inside her. She could not afford to let her submission to self-doubt sabotage her progress. Her phone buzzed, jolting her from her spiraling thoughts. It was Sophia. "Can we meet for coffee?" She welcomed the interruption, eager for the reassurance of her friend's perspective. Sophia arrived at the cafe looking vibrant, her easy smile breaking the tension Emily had been cocooned in. After ordering their drinks, they found a quiet corner. "You look like you've been through the ringer," Sophia said gently, her eyes catching the storm lingering in Emily's. "I had the meeting with Kevin. I thought I did well, but what if I missed something? What if he thinks I'm just selling him fluff with all this storytelling?" The words poured out, a mixture of fear and frustration, unraveling her tightly wound composure. Sophia leaned forward, her expression earnest. "Emily, you did not fail. You articulated your vision, and that is the first step in convincing anyone. Clarity is powerful, but you need to be ready to pivot. Kevin's skepticism is not a sign of your inadequacy. It's a challenge to strengthen your argument." Emily pondered this, her mind racing back to the project. The compiled data and the human stories interwoven into her narrative were essential, but the glaring absence of clear metrics for success was lurking in the shadows. It dawned on her that she needed to balance passion with precise, actionable outcomes. Kevin was right. Emotions must be harnessed carefully, not disregarded. "Maybe I need to articulate more of the quantitative measures that back up my vision," she mused, her words gaining weight as she spoke aloud. "Exactly," Sophia nodded. "Transformational storytelling must tie back to tangible results. What will success look like over time? How do you measure it? Think about those people affected by the stories you've shared and define what numbers follow their transformations. Build the narrative around that." A spark ignited within Emily. The clarity she sought was within reach. She envisioned a flowchart encapsulating the narrative journey, emphasizing the associated metrics tied to each decision. This would create a bridge from her emotional appeal to a steadfast business case. After their coffee, Emily rushed back to her desk, the weight of her doubts lifting, replaced with a newfound focus. As she drafted the new parameters for her proposal, she explored new methodologies that would keep the storytelling genuine while anchoring it firmly in data. In this whirlwind of inspiration, another thought pierced through her excitement. How would Kevin respond to these new revelations? Would they prompt constructive dialogue or further challenge her advocacy? She felt the adrenaline coursing through her, turning her previous fears into a steely resolve. Emily understood now that owning her narrative meant embodying both the emotional and logical pieces of the puzzle. With a deep breath, she pressed send on her revised proposal to Kevin, now a symphony of voices and numbers. This was no longer just her project. It was her mission to navigate this intricate dance of decision-making and influence, where she could maximize her impact. However, as she waited for Kevin's response, an unexpected email popped up, a news alert that sent chills down her spine. A major investor in the company had been involved in a staggering accident. The ramifications loomed large. The moment of truth lay ahead, and this situation could alter the dynamics of everything she had been working towards. Would this new challenge become an obstacle, or would it provide her the opportunity she desperately needed to step into her power even more? Emily's heart raced as she absorbed the news. The magnitude of the situation struck her. What had once felt like a growing partnership now hung delicately in the balance. This investor's accident could derail not just her proposal, but also the burgeoning collaborative effort she had worked so hard to cultivate. Nonetheless, deep inside, Emily sensed an opportunity that could elevate her narrative beyond personal ambition into a powerful catalyst for change. As she pondered the possible implications, clarity emerged from the haze. The story of the investor could be crafted into a poignant narrative about vulnerability, illustrating the fragility of success and wealth. If ever there were a moment to deepen her connection with her audience, both within the office and in the wider community, it was now. Harnessing the rush of her thoughts, she pulled up her laptop and began to outline a new approach. Her proposal, already fortified with data-backed storytelling, now needed an additional layer, one that explored the very real human experiences behind the facade of prosperity. She envisioned weaving the investor's accident into a call for better health initiatives, emphasizing how unforeseen events can change lives. When the day for a follow-up meeting with Kevin arrived, Emily felt a blend of trepidation and purpose. With her revised proposal in hand, intertwined with a fresh narrative, she was poised to address not only the data, but also the humanity that lay beneath the statistics. As she entered the conference room to face Kevin, his expression revealed no judgment, but rather a cautiously raised eyebrow. "You're back with new insights, I see," he remarked, gesturing for her to commence. She took a breath and launched into her improved presentation. Highlighting the investor's plight, she shared the potential for empathy to propel their mission forward. "We can use these stories to create public outreach efforts that connect with our audience on a deeper level," she asserted, her conviction swelling within her. "This initiative isn't merely about funding, it's about transforming lives, showing that everyone deserves access to health and wellness support, regardless of their status." Kevin listened intently, his eyes narrowing and then widening as she spoke. The balance she struck between quantitative success and emotional narratives resonated with him, syncing with the shift Emily had made within herself. "That's compelling, Emily," he interjected at a critical juncture. "It seems you're becoming not just a caretaker of stories, but a champion of voices that need amplification." The exchange carried on seamlessly, and Emily found herself engaging in a dialogue rather than a defensive exchange. She was not simply fighting for recognition. She was establishing her framework for leadership, one that commanded respect while remaining tethered to authenticity. "Let's implement this," Kevin declared as they neared the end of their meeting. "Compile a detailed plan to begin work on that public outreach initiative. The stories you've documented, coupled with a quest for quantifiable support, could change the landscape entirely." In that moment, Emily felt an unmistakable anchor of recognition. She had cultivated her own identity not just as a nurse, not just as a woman navigating two worlds, but as an advocate whose intention forged bridges. Days turned into weeks as Emily's initiative gained traction, each layer built upon collaboration and robust storytelling. The community's reception was overwhelming. She received heartfelt messages from individuals who had never felt seen, beneficiaries of the very outreach efforts she had envisioned. Each success was not merely a lesson in professional achievement. It reflected her evolution. Once plagued by assumptions of inadequacy, she now wielded her narrative power and sharpened her acumen, reshaping the course of not only her career but also the lives of countless others. Then came a phone call that punctuated her metamorphosis, a request for her to speak at a major healthcare symposium. This was more than a speaking opportunity. It was a culmination of her distinct journey from uncertainty to recognized competence, from mere caregiver to impactful leader. Nerves stirred within her, yet the thought of addressing an audience invigorated her spirit. When she stood before the audience that day, she wielded her words like a master artist, each story illuminating a vital truth, each statistic shaped by the lived experiences of countless individuals craving change. With every passing moment on that stage, Emily commanded her space. She had conquered not just the silent fears once embedded within her, but had emerged with a defined sense of self, armed with resilience and clarity. For the first time, she felt solid confidence in who she was and what she could achieve, a recognition that validated her professional aspirations while honoring her personal journey. As she stepped down from the stage, she felt an irresistible freedom settle within, as if each doubt had been dissolved by the power of her own voice. The applause erupted, a resonating confirmation of her transformation, a powerful signal that she had not only redefined herself, but had also paved the road for others to follow. This journey was not the end, it was just the beginning. Resolute in her purpose, she stood ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. You need to subscribe now to be part of more incredible personal transformation stories like this one. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support powerful narratives of overcoming adversity. Comment below with your thoughts on Emily's journey, and share any theories you may have about her next chapter. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this inspiring conclusion.